Fall, Seattle, Capitol Hill. The cold came early that year. Trees turned gold, then brown, then bare. The sky stayed gray. The wind didn't stop. Emily sat by the window of her small room. Her fingers were cold. Her face was calm, but her heart felt like a locked box. She was 17, and she wanted to leave. Every day felt the same. Her mother was always too tired. Her stepdad didn't talk much, only shouted when the food wasn't warm or the bills came late. No one ever asked, "Are you okay?" She walked to school and back like a shadow. She didn't speak much in class. She ate lunch alone, next to the gym, behind a tree. No one saw her. No one ever saw her, except the notebook. Every night, she opened the same page and wrote the same thing. "I just want someone to ask me to stay." Sometimes she wrote it 10 times, sometimes more. Her pen cut deep into the paper. She didn't want to run. She wanted a reason to stop. It wasn't a big thing she asked for. Not gifts, not parties, just someone to care. One night, she stood in the hallway, her hand on the door, her bag packed. Her mom and stepdad were in the kitchen, arguing over the price of gas. The voices were loud. The food on the table was cold. No one looked her way. She turned the doorknob, then stopped. The rain had started again. It hit the window hard, like fingers trying to get in. Seattle rain never asked for your name. It just came and stayed, like her sadness. She closed the door. Back in her room, she opened her notebook and wrote, "I'll try one more week, just one." That night, she didn't cry. She didn't sleep either. Tomorrow was Monday. A new teacher would start. She didn't care. Or maybe, just maybe, she hoped he would see her. Because deep down, even the most quiet heart still hopes. That was the last line she wrote. Even silence wants to be heard. And in that silence, a story began. Her first class on Monday was English. Room 207. Cold lights, quiet kids, a clock that ticked too loud. Emily sat in the back. Same spot as always. Hoodie on, head down. Then he walked in. He didn't look like the others. His coat was too big. His shoes were too clean. His hair was a mess. He looked like someone who forgot to care, but in a good way. "My name is Mr. Brooks," he said. "I like words, and I like the people who use them." Some kids laughed, some didn't care. Emily looked at him once, then back at her desk. One more class, one more hour. He walked to the board, wrote just one thing. "Write about one night you could not sleep." Some kids asked, "Can it be a fun night?" He said, "It can be any night, as long as it's real." Emily looked at the paper, then looked away. Her hands stayed still. Her mind did not. She saw her father's face the night he left. She saw her mother crying in the dark. She saw herself hiding in the cold behind the old car in the garage. But she did not write. Minutes passed. She heard pages turn, pencils move, but not hers. Then she felt it. A quiet look. From the front of the class. He was watching her. He didn't speak. Not yet. He walked down the rows, slow and soft. When he reached her desk, he saw her page, still blank. He didn't ask why. He just bent down and said, "You don't have to write now, but you do need to breathe." Then he stood up and walked away. That was it. But something inside her moved. It was not what he said. It was how he said it. Like he saw the storm inside her. Like he wasn't afraid of it. When the bell rang, she didn't move right away. She looked at her paper again, still blank. But in her bag, the notebook waited. That night, for the first time in weeks, she wrote something different. He saw me. That night, she did not just write one line. She wrote 3 pages. She wrote about the night her father left. She had been 10. She had stood at the top of the stairs, quiet, still. He had not looked back, not once. She wrote about the night she hid in the garage. The air was cold. She could hear her mother scream. She had covered her ears and counted to 100. Then 100 again. She wrote fast, like the words had been waiting. She did not plan to show it. It was not for school. It was not for him. It was for her. But the next day, something changed. In class, she did not sit in the back. She moved up 2 rows, still near the wall, still in her hoodie, but closer. Mr. Brooks saw her. He gave a small nod. He did not speak. But Emily felt it. Every night after, she wrote again. More and more about the things she never said. The birthday cake no one bought. The day she got sick but stayed home alone. The way her room felt safe only because it was small and quiet. She never turned in her work. He never asked. But sometimes, when he walked by her desk, he would stop for just a second, look at her page, say nothing, then give a small smile. That was enough. It felt like he read her without seeing her words. And maybe that was better. One day, she saw him look at the sky from the window, just stood there, quiet. She wondered what he was thinking. Maybe he wrote too. She started to wonder about him. Why did he leave Boston? Why did he teach here, in a small school with loud halls and broken lights? Why did he see her when others did not? She wrote a line that night. Some people speak without sound, and some people hear without words. He was the second kind. She was sure of it. She didn't feel alone at her desk anymore. She still didn't talk much, but her words had a place to go. The page. And somehow it started to feel like enough. It rained that Thursday. Not soft rain, not the kind you see in movies. It came fast and hard. It hit the windows like it was angry. Most kids ran out with coats and bags over their heads. Emily didn't run. She had no coat. Her bag was too small to help. She walked slow, letting the cold sink in. Then she heard his voice behind her. "Wait." She turned. Mr. Brooks was there. His black coat, already wet. His eyes quiet, as always. He took off his coat and held it out. She didn't speak, just looked at him. "You'll get sick," he said. She didn't move. He didn't push, just held it there. 1 second. 2. Then she took it. It was warm. It smelled like old paper and something soft, like a room full of books. Like home, if home had ever felt safe. They walked side by side, not speaking. He held his umbrella, but didn't use it. Just let the rain fall on him. She didn't look at him, but she felt something strange. Not love, not crush. Something quieter, like being seen without needing to shine. They stopped at the corner. She gave the coat back. He didn't say thank you. She didn't say goodbye. It was not that kind of moment. But that night, she wrote more than she ever had. 3 pages, then 5. At the end, she wrote, I never thought silence could feel warm. I never thought someone quiet could make me want to speak. She didn't cry. She didn't smile. She just stared at the page, holding it like it could break. The next day, she looked at him once in class. He didn't speak, but when she opened her notebook, she saw him nod. Like always. But this time, it felt like more. Like maybe someone could hold you without touching you. And maybe, for the first time, she didn't want to leave Seattle. Not yet. It started with a photo. Someone took it from a bus window. A teacher giving his coat to a girl. The rain, the walk, the look. By lunch, the whole school had seen it. They didn't know her name. They called her the girl with the hoodie. Some said they were in love. Some laughed. Some wrote things on the bathroom wall. Emily didn't speak. Mr. Brooks didn't speak. But the air in class changed. He didn't stop her from writing. He didn't stop nodding. But he stopped looking at her for too long. He stopped walking past her desk. He drew a line with silence. She felt it like cold wind. She wanted to ask, did I do something wrong? But she didn't. That night, she sat at her desk and looked at the same page for 1 hour. She didn't write. She only thought of the way his voice had once said, you need to breathe. Now, it felt like he couldn't breathe around her. The next day, her name was whispered in the halls. Not Emily, just that girl. Some smiled at her. Some stared. Some asked, did he kiss you? She said nothing. But her face turned red for the first time in months. At lunch, she stayed in the girls' room, in the last stall. On the wall, someone had drawn a heart. Inside it, her name and his. She took out a pen. She crossed it out, but her hand shook. Back in class, he spoke like always, taught like always. But his voice felt tired. He didn't look her way once. And yet, from the side of her eye, she knew. He was still watching. From the glass in the door, from the board, from the mirror near the window. Like he still cared. But he had to stop. She wrote 1 line that night. What hurts more than being unseen is being seen, then left alone. And under it, are you still there? If yes, say nothing. That will be enough. It was the night of the fall festival. Lights hung from trees. Music played loud. Laughter filled the cold air. Emily stood near the back, holding a cup of warm cider. She didn't want to be there, but part of her hoped he would be. She hadn't seen him all day. Then, just before the last light show, someone stepped on stage. Mr. Brooks. He held a paper in one hand. "I wrote something," he said, "about someone who once needed to be seen." His voice was soft, but it reached her like a wave. He read the poem. It was about a girl who sat in the back, a girl who wrote in the dark, a girl who wanted to be held but not touched. He never said her name, but every line pulled her closer to tears. At the end, he read, "She asked for nothing. So the world gave her less, but I saw her. I still do." Then he stepped down and left the stage. She stood still for a long time. When the crowd began to walk away, she moved too. She found him by the steps outside the gym. He looked at her. She asked, "If I were 21, would you still walk away?" He didn't smile. He didn't speak. But he didn't step back. He stood there, looking at her like he wanted to say yes, but knew he couldn't. They stood in silence. The world moved around them. Then she turned and walked away, but her hands were shaking. That night, she wrote nothing, only stared at the last line from the night before. If yes, say nothing. And now she knew. He had said it in the only way he could. The next morning, his chair was empty. No one said why. At first, she thought he was sick, but then the office called an all-class meeting. A new voice spoke from the front. "Mr. Brooks has asked to leave. He will not return this year." The room went quiet. Someone laughed. Someone whispered. Emily sat still. Her hands felt cold. Her notebook was in her bag, but she didn't open it. After class, she walked back to her desk, the one near the wall. Inside it, something waited. A letter. No name, no stamp, just folded paper. She opened it slow. It was a poem, written in black ink, the same kind he always used. She once looked at me with quiet eyes, not to ask for love, not to ask for hope, just for space, to be. And in that moment, I knew. Sometimes the kindest thing is to not stay, but to not disappear either. I'm here. In every word you write, that will not change. At the bottom, 5 more words. Don't stop, even if I do. She read it 5 times. Then she pressed it flat into the back of her notebook. Her fingers would not stop shaking. She didn't cry that day, not at school, not at dinner. But that night, under her small lamp, she opened to a new page. She wrote, "Leaving is not always the same as letting go. Sometimes staying would break more than silence." And one last line, "I miss you, but I understand." Then she closed the book, held it to her chest, and sat still. The wind outside hit the window, but inside she felt something calm, like maybe, even in silence, people could still stay. It had been 5 years. Emily now lived in Boston. She walked faster, spoke louder, smiled more. But some nights, she still wrote. The city was big, loud, always moving, but one part of her still felt like the girl in the hoodie. One cold evening, she walked into a small bookshop in Back Bay. It smelled like old paper and hot tea. She didn't plan to stay long, just needed quiet, a pause. Then she saw him. At the far end, near the window, black coat, same eyes. Mr. Brooks. He held a book. Worn edges. Brown cover. He didn't see her at first. She froze. A part of her wanted to turn around. Another part couldn't move. Then he looked up. Their eyes met. He didn't smile. She didn't either. But the space between them felt full. He looked down at the book in his hand, held it for her to see. She stepped closer. It was the same book she once quoted in her writing. The one he had marked with a note 5 years ago. He didn't say a word. She didn't need him to. They stood in the quiet for a moment that felt long and short at the same time. Then someone walked past. The door rang. The moment broke. She nodded once. He nodded back. No goodbye. No, how have you been? Just that one book, that one look. It was enough. That night, back in her small apartment, she opened her old notebook, the same one from school. She wrote, "You were right. You stayed, just not in the way I thought. And I'm still writing." She closed the book, placed it by her bed, and smiled. Only a little, but it felt full, like a door had never really closed. Just waited. She came back to Seattle 2 years later. Not for family, not for old friends, for herself. She had finished school, got a letter to teach English at a high school near Capitol Hill. She said yes without thinking. Something in her had always waited for this. The school was smaller than she remembered. The windows still loud in the wind. The hallways still cold in winter. But this time, she stood at the front of the class. "Hi," she said. "I'm Miss Hayes." No one knew she once sat in a room just like this, quiet and broken. On the first day, she gave her students one small task. Write about the night you could not sleep. Some looked up, some smiled, some said, "Do we have to?" She smiled and said, "Only if you want to." One boy in the back didn't write, just stared at his page, hands still. She didn't ask why. She just nodded at him once and moved on. Later that day, another student asked, "Have you ever missed someone you couldn't keep?" She paused, then said, "Yes, but I learned not to hate them for leaving." That night, in her small office, she found her old notebook in a drawer. She read one line out loud. "Don't stop, even if I do." Then she wrote something new. "Now I'm the one who stays." It felt full, like a circle had closed. She looked at the board across the room, then out the window where fall leaves danced in the air. In that moment, she didn't miss him. She thanked him for walking away, for not answering, for showing her how to speak by saying less. The room had one photo on the wall. It was black and white. A chair sat by an open window. No person, just light, just air. Students passed by it every day. One day, a girl raised her hand. "Who's in the photo?" Emily looked at it for a long second. She smiled. "No one," she said. "And also, someone I'll never forget." The class went quiet. The girl asked again, softer this time, "Was it someone you lost?" Emily looked down, then back up. "I didn't lose him," she said. "He just couldn't stay." She let that hang in the air, then turned back to the board. But her heart stayed with the window. Later that day, she found a note in her desk. It wasn't signed. It just said, "Sometimes I feel like no one sees me, but your class helps." She folded the paper and held it close. That night, she opened her old notebook again. So many pages, so many words, but she found a blank one. She wrote, "Someone once gave me a place to write, a quiet space, a kind silence. Now I give that to others." Then one more line. "The person who didn't stay is the reason I did." The wind hit the window again, just like before. But she didn't feel cold. She felt like part of something bigger, like she had become the thing she once needed. And somehow, that made it all worth it. Sometimes, we don't need someone to fix us. We just need them to stay long enough to see us. This story reminds us that words are not always needed. A small look, a quiet nod, a coat in the rain, these speak louder than any voice. It shows that people carry heavy things behind still faces. And even when they say, "I'm fine," they may be breaking inside. Mr. Brooks didn't save Emily. He didn't promise anything, but he gave her space to speak when no one else did. And when the world pushed too close, he stepped back, not to leave, but to protect what was good. We also see how time moves, how the ones who help us may never stay, but still live inside the people we become. Emily, once the quiet girl, became the one who stayed. And in that, she gave what she once needed most. Not big acts, not loud love, just a kind of still care, like an open window on a cold day, where the light is soft and someone says nothing, but it feels like everything. Think back for a second. Was there ever someone who saw you, truly saw you, when the rest of the world passed by? Or maybe, were you that person for someone else? Sometimes we meet people who don't stay long. They walk into our lives, leave no promises, no grand words, but something they do, one small thing, stays with us forever. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough to keep us going. If this story made you feel something, even just a little, maybe it's because you've been there too. Maybe you've sat in silence, hoping someone would notice. Or maybe someone you love is sitting in that silence right now. So share this story, not because it's a must-watch, but because someone out there may need it tonight, to feel seen, or just to breathe a little softer after a long day. Even if they don't say it, they'll remember it. And maybe, one day, they'll thank you. Not with words, but with light in their eyes that wasn't there before. You never know what one small story can hold, or how far a quiet video can go. If you liked the story, comment number 7. If you think the story could be better, comment number 8. We are always here, working hard to bring you the best stories. Thank you for watching, our dear friends. Your support means everything to us. See you in the next story.